How do you feel about being traded to the Astros, Christian?
It's a business. It's a business, so.
That was Christian Vasquez just about an hour or so ago at Minute Maid Park as he was in the middle of batting practice as the starting catcher tonight in the lineup for the Boston Red Sox. The report started to trickle out. He would actually need to change dugouts because he had been traded to the Houston Astros. Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again into the Fox 26 Sports Stream. We appreciate you joining us. As always, I'm Sal Manine, sports producer here at Fox 26. We do this every Monday night just after 7 o'clock. You can find us on all our social media outlets. Go to our YouTube channel. Just search Fox 26 Houston in YouTube, and we'll come up. Go to our website, fox26houston.com, and then, of course, Twitter and our Facebook pages. It has been a wild few hours in the world of baseball. The trade deadline less than 24 hours away. 5 o'clock Central tomorrow is when trades are no longer allowed in Major League Baseball. We've already seen some big names on the moves, the Astros making some moves of their own, and it's likely we're still going to see some more action as things get closer and closer to the deadline. So we'll get into all that, and then, of course, we'll also talk Texans as they put on the pads for the first time at NFL training camp, and we finally have a resolution to Deshaun Watson, or at least part of a resolution to Deshaun Watson's NFL disciplinary hearing. So we'll get into all that as things roll along. The Astros are just any minute now getting set for first pitch up at Minute Maid against the Red Sox. Mark Berman has been at the ballpark all day. He will be there live tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. We'll get you all caught up on not just the game tonight against the Sox, but all the moves that the Astros have been making. Because thus far, it was not just adding Christian Vasquez, but earlier before that, the Astros officially added some depth at a couple positions of need by bringing in Trey Mancini, veteran outfielder for the Baltimore Orioles. He can play first base. He can play the outfield. He can serve as a designated hitter. Guy who does a little bit of everything and gives Houston some much needed depth, whereas they can use him again in multiple situations, whether it's in the outfield or at first base. So here's what it looks like. The Astros offense getting a lot better than it was when you woke up this morning. Trey Mancini and Christian Vasquez, while the numbers may not immediately jump out at you, like say a Juan Soto or Shohei Ohtani, the kind of big names that people were speculating might get traded, these are quality major leaguers who have played a lot of baseball. In the case of Vasquez, played a lot of postseason baseball and brings some potency to the Astros lineup. The biggest thing with both of them is not only their versatility, because Vasquez could even pop out and play a little bit in the infield if necessary. But if you're an Astros fan, you're looking at this going, there's only one real threat in the American League right now to winning the pennant and going back to the World Series, and that's the New York Yankees. And while the Astros certainly don't fear the Yankees, they're bringing in two guys from the American League East who have faced the Yankees and all their pitchers a whole heck of a lot. So these guys know what to expect from Cole and Chapman and Clay Holmes and Nestor Cortez and all the funky stuff that he does with his windup. They've been in Yankee Stadium before. They're not going to be fazed by that. And Christian Vasquez obviously played a lot of postseason baseball and was a key part of the Red Sox 2018 World Series championship team. So they're bringing in two veteran bats and two guys who should help them in what, again, in all likelihood, other than injuries, the biggest obstacle to the Astros repeating as American League champs is the New York Yankees, and they brought in two guys who are very familiar with going up against the Pinstripes. And like I said, both guys have a lot of versatility, have a lot of experience, and that's what the Astros were able to comment on earlier. Now, the Christian Vasquez news had not gone through before the Astros had to head back into the clubhouse because, again, it happened right before the game started as the Sox were in the middle of batting practice. But here's what owner and chairman Jim Crane and utility man Aledmys Diaz had to say about Trey Mancini and what he does for this Houston lineup going forward.
Well, I think our guys worked hard. We still have some things we want to do. but he's a good bat, and he'll fit in well. We think it's the right move at the right time. We'd like to make a couple more moves. We'll see what happens.
Where are y'all at in terms of potential other moves?
Well, all the obvious ones. I can't give you all the details on them. They're still negotiating this and that. We got till 5 o'clock tomorrow. A lot of times these go right down to the buzzer, and so we're focused on getting something done and improving the team, and that's where we're at.
How important was it to get a guy like Mancini here?
He's a good bat, and he's a good guy, and we think he'll fit in well.
I mean, I've been playing against him like a long time, so I know the kind of person he is and what he can bring on the field. So we are very excited to have him in the team and welcome him and help us to go, like the rest of the year and go to the playoff.
What do you think he can bring you guys?
I mean, everything. I mean, he's present in the clubhouse. Obviously, I've been doing this for the last 7 years in the bigs, and great hitter. He can play outfield too. He's a great player. So we are happy for having him here.
And Mancini's a guy who everyone in the baseball world has just raved about as far as his clubhouse presence. Obviously, as you heard Aledmys Diaz reference there, a veteran guy who's been around the game a long time. And don't forget, he's the reigning American League Comeback Player of the Year. He actually, right before the pandemic, the trainers found something was off with Trey Mancini. And then when they did some further medical tests, it turns out he had a tumor. He ended up being diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer, beat it, was able to return to baseball, and just picked up right where he left off. So certainly a huge tip of the cap, and congrats to Trey Mancini on something much bigger than baseball. And he's been able to pick things right back up and was beloved in that Orioles clubhouse. And a lot of people around the O's have been saying that he was a big part about helping usher in some of these young guys and guide them as Baltimore has been in the midst of a rebuild. And now he's going to get a chance to play in some much more meaningful games than he's been playing in his big league career, as the Astros are in the midst of another chase for a World Series appearance. Now, the Astros so far in these 2 moves have not had to give up much other than some minor league prospects. For Mancini, they did have to part ways with Jose Siri, who was actually not with the big league club the last few weeks. It was actually a 3-team deal that Jose Siri is now going to the Tampa Bay Rays. The Astros get Trey Mancini and another minor leaguer. They did have to lose Chase McDermott, who was one of their better regarded lower level prospects in the Houston minor league system, but they haven't had to deal Urquidy. They haven't had to deal Odorizzi or Garcia or any of the young arms that they have, because we know that they're going to have a surplus of pitchers once Lance McCullers Jr. rejoins the rotation sometime in the next few weeks. So Houston so far has been able to get some nice pieces for the stretch run. Should point out both those guys are impending free agents, Trey Mancini and Christian Vasquez. So in all likelihood, this is just a rental for the playoff push and October, and then see what happens after that. But again, the big news so far is that Trey Mancini and Christian Vasquez coming to the Houston Astros. Let's see if they actually started. They just started the game right now. So it is scoreless in the top of the first inning. And so, of course, we will have all the highlights and all the latest if there are any more moves, because, again, trade deadline until 5 o'clock Central tomorrow. We'll have all the latest for you on Fox 26 News at 9. We will also hear from 2 fan favorites of the Astros pitching staff, and that is the aforementioned Lance McCullers Jr. and his former teammate and still one of his good friends in the game of baseball, Dallas Keuchel. That is because tomorrow night, Lance McCullers Jr. will make a rehab start for the Sugar Land Space Cowboys, and opposing him for Round Rock will be Dallas Keuchel, who just signed a minor league deal a few days ago with the Texas Rangers as he tries to work himself back into a major league rotation. So it's going to be 2 key members of that Astros World Series team, 2 good friends and former teammates, toeing the rubber against one another tomorrow night down in Sugar Land. We got the chance to get both guys' thoughts on how they're dealing with all that earlier today. Here's what Lance McCullers Jr. had to say from the Astros clubhouse.
Really fun. I think it's going to be cool. I know, I'm trying to make my way back, off the DL, and he's trying to, make his way back with the Rangers. And Dallas is a special guy. To me, he's treated me with a lot of kindness, treated my family with a lot of kindness, throughout my big league career, but especially there in the early years. And so I'm excited that he'll be here pitching, and I'll get to pitch against him, and then hopefully able to see him a couple times while he's in town.
He says that he loves watching you pitch. You're like his little brother. Now you got 4 or 5 pitches. You're out there dominating. He just loves watching you pitch. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I learned a lot from Dallas when I was coming up. I learned a lot about, working hard. I learned a lot about, how to approach, being a big leaguer every day. And, he helped me with my sinker, my changeup, my cutter. A lot of those pitches I throw, he's had a lot to do with, those being part of my repertoire.
So again, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock down there in Sugar Land, and we'll of course get Dallas Keuchel's thoughts on facing Lance tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. He was kind enough to give us a few minutes over the phone as he was getting set to head down to Sugar Land and get all prepared for his outing tomorrow. So that's the latest on where things stand in the baseball world. Still scoreless up there at Minute Maid, but the Astros definitely a much better offensive team tonight than they were when they woke up this morning. A few other news and notes from around the league as the trade deadline approaches. By all accounts, Shohei Ohtani off the market. Angels don't want to deal him at this time. Juan Soto still remains a Washington National. That, though, could very well change in the next day or so, or now less than a day ahead of the trade deadline. But it looks like it's going to be a few National League teams that would be in the mix for his services if he does move. We did see just a few days ago the Mariners make a big splash getting Luis Castillo, the Cincinnati Reds ace, for 3 of their top prospects they had to part ways with in order to get Castillo, and then they still went out and lost 3 of 4 and 6 out of 7 out of the All-Star break to the Astros. But they won't say it publicly, but everybody knows Seattle just wants to get to the postseason because they currently have the longest playoff drought in baseball. Haven't been there since Ichiro's rookie year in 2001. So they're going all in, doing whatever they can to secure one of those wild card spots. But Houston's lead in the division remains a very, very healthy 12 games. So they don't really necessarily have to worry about the Mariners catching them in the standings, but the M's trying to make whatever moves they can to secure themselves a postseason spot. Yankees made another big move. They a few days ago had acquired Andrew Benintendi, the outfielder from the Kansas City Royal, another former Red Sox, along with Christian Vasquez. And then today they picked up Oakland star Frankie Montas to stick into their starting rotation. So Stros couldn't stand pat, had to keep making moves as you see other contenders around the American League doing what they could to bolster their lineup. And as we heard owner Jim Crane allude to a short time ago, his team is not done. So don't be surprised if there are a few more names that are being moved about and find themselves in an Astros jersey before 5 o'clock tomorrow. So that's what's going on baseball-wise. We'll shift gears quickly and talk a little football. As I mentioned, by now everybody's heard the Deshaun Watson suspension handed out 6 games. The NFL now has 3 days to decide if they want to appeal the ruling by Judge Sue L. Robinson, a former federal judge who was serving as the independent arbiter between the NFL and the NFL Players Association in dealing with whatever discipline may or may not happen for Deshaun Watson. We don't need to go too far down the rabbit hole of the X's and O's. Basically, she strictly followed the rules as they were written in the collective bargaining agreement between the league and the Players Association, which is why it jumps out at you if you're just a casual fan going, how many different women accuse this man of sexual misconduct? How many different lawsuits were filed against him? And he's only getting a 6-game suspension. If you go strictly by what is written in the collective bargaining agreement, while Judge Sue L. Robinson did allude to the fact that Deshaun Watson did commit inappropriate acts and was guilty of taking advantage of women in these massage therapy sessions, applying things based strictly on how they are done in the NFL in the past. That's how they arrive at 6 games. And it's unlikely that's going to change, because if the NFL appeals and tries to say we want to go for the full indefinite suspension of a year or longer, then this thing possibly ends up in federal court. And this is also the first instance of this new system between the league and the Players Association of having an independent arbiter. So that's where things stand on now. Cleveland Browns quarterback Deshaun Watson suspended 6 games by the NFL, and the league has 3 days to decide if they want to appeal that, which bizarrely enough, they'd be appealing to themselves, and then Roger Goodell could overrule the initial ruling. But we don't need to get into all of that. There's enough that's already been said about how convoluted and poorly written the NFL's personal conduct policy is. Remember, this is the same league that saw the Ray Rice video and didn't want to do much of anything until the public saw it. And then it kind of brought the league to its senses that, oh, maybe this is actually bad, what happened in that situation. So that's what's going on in that regard. As for Deshaun's former team, the Houston Texans, continued training camp after their first off day yesterday. Today was the first time they put on the pads. And so you hear the coach speak every year. It's not real football until the pads come out. And, we're just out there in shells. We're dancing around in our underwear. Well, now is when it actually starts to count, and when it actually gives the coaches a better idea of what they have to work with. And thus far, it's been nothing but rave reviews for the Texans quarterback Davis Mills as he enters his second year and his first year as the unquestioned QB1 going into the regular season. Here's what Davis Mills had to say on his progression and some of his teammates who have continued to just sing the praises of the former Stanford quarterback.
I think I've developed a lot since the end of last season. I think I felt the progression at the end of last year, and then really taking into this offseason, the momentum and stacking on it has allowed me to come out here and start playing really fast at the start of training camp and throughout OTAs. So, I'm just excited to keep progressing.
Davis was asked what he focused on this past offseason.
A lot of it, with the new offense, is making sure first I have command and control of this offense, make sure I'm on all the details, and then personally just making sure I'm able to make every throw. We kind of pinpointed and saw the shot chart or the throw chart from across the field and saw the different percentages, and I had a couple boxes where I needed to work on, so I focused on those type of throws, just making sure my feet and my body were in line to make all those throws. So the biggest thing is just coming out and being ahead of schedule in the playbook so you can come out and play fast.
Lovie Smith says everybody gets a vote for team captain, and his vote is for Davis.
It's awesome. Obviously, we still have a lot of time to go before captain voting, but I think I've worked hard. I know we have a lot of guys, though, who have stepped up and been leading the team, so I don't know if I can pinpoint it entirely on myself, but that's an honor.
Yeah, he's done a tremendous job. Physically, he's in great shape. Arm looks great. Mentally, he stepped up his leadership even more. Some of our installs and stuff as an offense during meetings, he's leading it. He's telling guys what to do, which is super impressive to me, and it's going to help his leadership skills even that much more. And so, I love his confidence out there. I love how he's being commanding in the huddle and really taking control of the offense and leads us down the field.
Lovie Smith was asked what separates Laramie Tunsil from other veteran tackles in the NFL.
We talk a while on what separates Laramie. It's the reason why we pay him more than anybody else on our football team. He's a not good player. He's a special player, a special man.
That sounds good to me. I'm gonna get another bag, right? Just joking. It's great. Just get praise like that from a head coach like Lovie Smith, who led a team to the Super Bowl, the Chicago Bears. So it feels great.
So camp will continue throughout this week, and then actually a week from Saturday, August the 13th, is when the Texans will play their first game of the preseason. They will host the Saints at NRG Stadium. So again, for all the latest on not just everything going on with the Texans and the Astros, but anything in the Houston sports scene, make sure you're following our sports director, Mark Berman. You can find him on Twitter. His handle is at Mark Berman Fox 26, as it's going to be a busy 24 hours leading up to the trade deadline. Training camp continues in the NFL. College training camp begins this week. U of H will hold its first practice on Thursday. So certainly plenty of reasons to make sure you are following Mark on Twitter. Go to our website, fox26houston.com, and that you are tuning in to Fox 26 on the regular as the sports season really starts to ramp up as football is back and we get ever so closer to the baseball postseason. The first inning has just ended, still scoreless between the Astros and the Red Sox up there at Minute Maid. So we will have the latest for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. But until then, for all of us here at Fox 26, I'm Sal Manine. We will see you again next Monday. This has been the Fox 26 Sports Stream. Take care, y'all.